Hey everybody, welcome to the MMA podcast. I'm Karyn Bryant.
What's up, guys? Alan Jouban here.
So the reason we're not together today, we had a media lunch with Kevin Lee and Demetrious right around the time that we usually do this thing. So I'm glad we were able to at least catch up, this way. So thank you for that.
Pleasure. And then obviously, I know we get into it, but it's just a crazy day anyway with everything going on. Not a great way to start out our day if you want to, take it from there.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was interesting because last night before we went to bed, we're talking about Las Vegas, obviously, and I saw some things about it, and it was already really bad. And then just the difference between the amount of people who were injured, who then ended up passing away just between last night and this morning when I turned it on, it was just awful. And, that was one thing we asked Kevin Lee about right away today because he's living in Vegas now. Apparently there were a lot of UFC people there, a lot of people from like PR department and different things that I'm hearing now. A lot of people were there
at the festival.
Yeah. So just really horrible. Luckily, knock wood so far. I haven't heard any reports of people I directly know, but my friend said she knows people, and it's terrible. It's terrible.
Wow, I did not know that. I thought about that this morning. I didn't find out until this morning. I text H.E.A.T with the UFC.
Yeah.
I'm not H.E.A.T to see if she was all right, and she said yes, but I didn't know if anyone else is there. I'll tell you one thing, though, Karyn, that made me super happy. I saw Dana White is donating $1 million to the families affected by that. Joe Rogan is getting all the proceeds from his show. I believe it's coming up
on Friday night. Yeah, so he'll give it all.
The victims, and there's been a lot of stuff starting to come out like that. So I love that in this time that everybody's so crazy and against each other, a lot of people are coming together for the right cause.
Absolutely. Well, we did sit down with the guys today, and even they said, it is a little bit strange to talk about face punching, something that isn't really so important in light of everything that is going on in the world. But therefore, like they say, the show must go on, and that is their job. And that is something that we want to talk about today. I want to talk to you about, just some of the fights at UFC 216. But also, Alan, did you see the media lunch on Friday with Tony Ferguson and Fabricio Werdum?
I heard a little bit about it. I didn't get to see everything. I heard there was an instigator somewhere at the lunch, but we at MMA Heat are going to find out who this instigator was, and we're going to take care of them.
Yeah, newsflash, that might have been me. Accidentally, it's so crazy because we initially, when this whole thing happened, nobody really knew, we're like, what is happening right now? That, it's just unexpected at a media lunch. You don't expect that. And you don't expect Tony and Fabricio, people who you've never ever heard of, not getting on. You know what I mean? So it was sort of just kind of felt like it came from nowhere. Then after the fact, you kind of hear that Tony doesn't really like Fabricio's manager, Ali, of course, because Ali manages Khabib. So maybe there's been some, some tension in the back between Tony and Ferguson and Werdum's team, but maybe not those two directly. But I didn't like it. It wasn't a good thing. It wasn't a good thing. But in terms of the me instigating it, okay. So what I was trying to say there, sorry, is we have the footage out of the argument. But then we ended up releasing a 360-degree footage of the whole thing too, because we found that by just putting out the argument. And people are always going to take sides, but they maybe didn't have all the information or just the real feeling of the room leading up to it. But so Wade and I hemmed and hawed, we don't put stuff out that's trades in that kind of thing, right? I'm trying to think of the word, we don't try to put out gossipy heavy videos or things where we think people are going to look bad or, you know what I mean? We really don't want to do that kind of thing. So we really were going back and forth, should we even put this out? I don't know. Because it has some personal conversations too, and that's not on the clock, and I want to respect Tony and Fabricio, and but at the same time we wanted to make sure everybody sort of got everything, because people were taking sides without seeing the whole thing or whatever. So you could still take your sides and pick your whole thing, but we literally spoke to management on Tony's side and stuff, and reached out to Werdum to let him know, hey, we're thinking of doing this. And they were cool with, putting it out or whatever. But we weren't really trying to stoke the fire of making them look bad.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get to see the 360 thing yet. I'm still eager to see it. I watched the video a couple times, and I believe I could hear your voice in it. or heard you guys talking.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, Ali being Werdum's manager and being the same manager of what's his name?
Habib.
Habib, yeah, Habib. They go back and forth all the time on Twitter, Tony and Ali, because he pretty much runs Khabib's account. He pretty much tweets for him. So Tony's always going after him. And, like, they go at it. The jabs are like, wannabe fighter / manager.
Right.
So I think him being there already set the energy, the tone that Tony was going to go under. And, look, I know Tony. Obviously, we've trained together a bunch of times. Tremendous fighter. Yeah. Great father. Yeah. Not always the best at socializing with people.
Right. Yeah.
That's just his DNA makeup, and you add in a negative energy with Werdum being seated right next to him. I don't mean Werdum being the negative. I mean him having beef with the manager and client being Werdum seated right next to him. I think it was also, you know what? This is Tony being the biggest name on the bill, right? He's the biggest name on the card, and Werdum is below him right here. Yeah. Werdum is not in the co-main event, and he kind of feels like he needs to be that guy. If he wins, he's going to be an interim title holder, and he might be possibly fighting McGregor. Right. He kind of feels like he needed to be the alpha male. It's tough when you have another alpha male heavyweight sitting right beside you, though.
Yeah, it is really tough. And one of the things that I'm happy that was shown in the 360 video, because the guys come in and they greet each other, and Fabricio's there. It's like, hey, how's it going? And he tries to go for a fist bump with Tony, and Tony seems to be a little reluctant to do it, but eventually does. But then Fabricio's kind of sitting there looking at him, sort of just like, hey man, like, well, why are you a little chilly type thing? Like, they're definitely, Tony was a little standoffish, from the beginning towards Fabricio. So, Fabricio seemed to notice that, and he was kind of like, yeah, what's going on? What's up? And then Tony got up and walked away, and Fabricio asked me if people were wondering what we're talking about in Portuguese. He says to me, hey, what's going on with Tony? Is he sad? Is something going on with him? He seems kind of sad. And I said something like, yeah, I think he is a little sad. Maybe, he's stressed out for the fight. I said, maybe he's just, a little anxious, really thinking of the fight. And Fabricio was like, yeah, I don't know. And I said, well, maybe he's really hungry. I mean, I'm sure, that comes into it. I said, but I said, yeah, he does, if I'm being honest, yeah, he seems a little different today. But I think it's just, it's fight week and all this stuff. And Fabricio says, yeah, I don't really like that when people are cool with you one place, and then, the next time you see them, they act differently towards you. So that's that conversation we're having. So people are saying, like, oh, that's not cool. You guys are yapping in a foreign language about somebody. Yes, we were talking about Tony, but I was answering Fabricio's concern with, what was up with him. And so, yeah, I don't think Tony, I don't think, Fabricio's trying to get in an argument with the guy. But what you were saying about Tony being a little, different, like for sure is one of the more unique guys in the UFC, which is why I've always been a fan of Tony. Like, he does dance to the beat of his own drum, you know what I mean? And that's what, to me, makes him engaging, obviously, and he's such a fun fighter to watch. So it's hard. I really hope nothing, like, keeps coming from this. It's hard when you're sitting there, like, we're real tight with Werdum. Werdum has been one of the best guys for us in terms of, from the beginning, when I started to learn Portuguese, has always been really supportive, and we have a great relationship, and I've always gotten on with Tony so well. And the first interview we did with him was years ago, and it's like, you hate when you're like, why are they fighting? Like, you guys are both too cool for this, I didn't like it.
What's going to be interesting to see for me, Karyn, is going into fight week in Vegas with all the media obligations and being in the same hotel, is Tony going to let that throw him off of his game? Because he's going to cross Werdum. He's going to sit next to Werdum a couple times. That's not even his opponent. So, like, the UFC will try and separate Lee and Ferguson in different rooms and etc. But they might have Werdum and Tony in the same holding pen waiting to do media obligations because, why wouldn't they? So it'll be interesting if things get brought up during fight week and Tony focuses his attention on fighting Werdum when he should be focusing on Lee. I'll be interesting to see that if maybe they have an embedded or a countdown. Or I think they did the countdown already. I saw myself on it. But if there's an embedded, I'll be interested to see what happens during fight week.
Yeah, how that goes. And it's interesting, too, as it does sort of speak to that mentality. Like, so we saw Kevin today. So now we have, sort of both sides of that title fight. And Kevin just seems to be in a much different headspace, like a much lighter headspace. You know, Tony was much, much more serious. And Kevin, I think just in general, his personality is a little bit more lighthearted anyway or whatever, but he seemed to be a person approaching this fight week much more calmly, or at least not demonstrating, you know what I mean, that he might be stressed about it or thinking about it. Like he just does, and that's not to say that Tony isn't confident, because I think Tony is a confident guy, but they just, just shows in different ways. And if you were to sit there and maybe pick just based on their body language or whatever, you'd be like, oh, Kevin seems not worried about this at all, so it was interesting.
No, I agree. Kevin did. I saw the video.
Yeah.
Kevin a lot more relaxed and playful. Two different energies, two different personalities. Kevin was sitting next to Demetrious Johnson.
Yeah.
Can't be too upset with Demetrious right here, making jokes, playing games and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like pretty lighthearted himself. So I think the combined energy of those two let them kind of relax all together, I
think so too. So I'm curious who you think is going to win that fight, though, between Tony and Kevin, because a lot of me thinks Tony would, because mostly I think Tony should have already had a title shot. I think he's so good that I think he could have fought for the title before already. I don't like how, like somebody else I know, somebody gets tagged a little bit in the first round sometimes. And do you know who I'm talking about? I don't know. There's this guy. He's a good
never
guy.
Good.
Yeah. So Tony does, sort of make your heart stop every now and then at the beginning, but I find him to be just one of the most entertaining fighters. I love watching. I love his style. I love his swagger in there and everything. He does scare me sometimes with the with how he gets hit before he's able to rally back. But we're talking about he just lives in that scramble place, which I think is so cool, and just pulls that Darce out of nowhere. And every time you're like, oh my God, I think he's fantastic. I think he's a fantastic fighter. And Kevin, I feel like maybe, I think he's great. I think it might be slightly early for him, but I think he's capable, but I guess I lean more towards Tony just because of the experience there.
I think I agree with mostly all that, Karyn. I would say Tony's two best assets are his creativity and his toughness.
Yeah.
You don't look at any one particular skill set and say he's the best striker.
Right.
He's the best grappler. Everything's so fluid and creative, and he's very, very tough. You still got me? Am I cutting out?
Yeah, you froze up a little bit, but I can still hear you. There you go. Yeah.
So, yeah. I feel
Here
like I'm cutting out on you over here.
No, I see you again.
Okay, cool. Tony's so tough. He's so creative. I think that Kevin Lee does have a chance to beat him because, like you said, Tony gives the opportunity to a lot of his opponents.
Yeah.
A lot of his opponents hit him in the face. They hurt him. They land certain things. But his toughness keeps him in there. Exactly. His creativity gets him to the finish, gets him through the fights. So Kevin does have opportunity. But I feel like Tony is he's weathered the storm too many times. He's beaten so many tough opponents that I'm not sure that Kevin Lee would be able to beat. What's his name? RDA?
Oh, yeah. That was a great fight between Tony and RDA. It was a great fight.
Great fight. I don't know if Kevin Lee would be able to get through RDA like Tony did. Also, what's his name? Barboza.
Edson Barboza.
Super tough fight. That's another guy that would probably give Kevin Lee a tremendous fight. Tony has showed that he could get past those very, very tough tests. So I've got to lean towards Tony, having weathered the storm with all these tough competitors already.
Yeah, and if you remember, too, if I'm not mistaken, the RDA fight was at altitude in Mexico City, and in the 5th round, Tony started doing the cha-cha. You know what I mean? It's like the dude won't get tired. Won't.
That's it. And this is a 5-round fight. He knows he could go 5 rounds. He's done it at altitude. He's doing the cha-cha in the 5th round. He's got that mental edge that he knows he can always rely on that, where I'm not sure how much I've seen of Kevin Lee's cardio, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know he's a athlete, and he's a very big, muscular guy who has a tremendous weight cut. So this is something that we haven't really seen in my eyes that I can remember. Kevin Lee going 5 rounds. Will that big, muscular figure be able to last the 4 or 5 rounds that the tall, skinny Tony had no problem with. It'll be interesting to see that.
Well, you bring up a good point too, because Kevin basically said the same thing that you just said when you described Tony, because he said, well, what's the guy good at? He was taking it as a negative thing a little more, but like he says, yeah, when you look at him, you don't think, oh my God, this guy is awesome at something. You just go, yeah, that's a tough dude. And Kevin just feels that his actual skill set is better. Whereas Tony has, that chin and that toughness going for him, but Kevin believes technically that he's better. So you know what? I kind of actually, it's funny because I was working that night when they were together on the interview. Kevin had beaten Michael Chiesa, and I had no idea. I didn't know that was going to happen. And it is kind of crazy that based on, Kevin was saying too, look, I knew we were going to fight at some point. It just, just came to being this soon, because also without Khabib and this and that. But it is interesting how it came together. I like them both. I think it actually could end up being a great fight.
It's funny how fast the fight came together. I remember watching that live, that interview, and it was so awkward. I couldn't watch it, but I had to watch it. And then, and I remember Tony kind of telling him, look, man, look, slow down. You don't want any of this. You're not even on my radar. We're going to fight someday, but you got to earn your way up the ladder. You got to pass the test first. I'll see you later on down the line. We're not on the same path right now.
Right.
And then sure as hell, the next fight they get together. It worked. It just shows how, man, if you can start marketing yourself, calling out names, something usually stems from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as a little side note there, you brought up a couple of things. So we did isolate a couple of sound bites from today. Kevin Lee actually talking about Khabib. I asked him sort of like, it is kind of crazy that this guy still looms. He's such a, a big figure in the division, and yet he really doesn't fight that often, So Kevin, we sort of isolated a little thing where he shares his thoughts on that, but also something really funny, talking about the weight cut when you're talking about Kevin being big. DJ, is sitting there right next to him, and we started talking about like weight cuts, or heck, if you can still, he's like, oh no man, it's fine, I was out the other day and I was just eating this. And so he starts talking about all the food that he's eating, and meanwhile we are at a restaurant in the Q&A in Borg. Kevin's sitting there with his little container of chicken and his container of like dry lettuce, and the more Demetrious starts like going in on all this food he's been eating and this and that, and then Kevin starts to grab his food and like snack on his lettuce. It's very funny. And then Demetrious, realizes he's just egging him on. Goes on more and more about all the food he can eat and still make weight. It's very funny. So those guys were entertaining together. So if people want to just see like a funny little clip between those two guys, that was pretty good. What do you think is going to happen when Fabricio fights the Black Beast?
Well, as you know, we were both on the Black Beast train for quite a while. Totally. We're fans. We love the talking. His Instagram stuff is hilarious. He does funny stuff. He's a very likable guy if he's not jabbing at you. I get it. He's very likable if you're not Ronda Rousey or somebody like that. But from the outside, he's a funny guy.
Very.
From what he showed in the Mark Hunt fight, that he's very beatable. He's got a little bit of quit in him. When before that fight, he was saying, I don't have any quit in me.
Right.
And in that fight, he's got quit in him, and he shows that he's soft to the body.
Yeah.
Werdum was able to get past Mark Hunt pretty, I don't want to say easily, but he was able to finish him, put him away. Werdum is another long fighter who could throw those same kicks. Both men say that they want to finish each other, which I really like. But I just see Werdum being able to wrangle him to the ground and either put him away with strikes or a submission.
Yeah, I see it. It's either Derrick by KO or Fabricio, to me, by submission. And yeah, it could be the type of thing, the whole thing where he either knees you and sets up the ability to get a neck or something like that. Yeah, I definitely think it could be Fabricio. That's funny. Fabricio by submission.
And the thing is, like, although Derrick Lewis has tremendous knockout power, a lot of his finishes were what? He drags the guy to the ground or stuffs a shot and gets on top and ground and pounds. But now he's got to try to ground and pound an elite level grappler on the ground, where if he does end up on the ground with Werdum could probably easily sweep him, and then that'll be the beginning of the end. So I could see both men. I can see Werdum trying to stay at range on the feet, and then the Black Beast trying to only stay on the feet, because I don't think he wants anything to do with the ground. But it'll be a good matchup. But I see Werdum taking this one, finishing him.
Yeah, and I think, too, you're right. Derrick needs to stay on the feet, but also when he does throw stuff, I mean, you kind of see it's like Western Union. Here comes Derrick's right hand. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the dude is not fast or whatever. You see everything coming, so it's just a question of Fabricio, protecting his chin and, like you said, staying in at a good range to avoid that. Because I don't think there's anything that Derrick's going to do that's going to surprise Werdum. I think he's been in there with all the greats. And I actually thought he eked out the win over him. I thought that was kind of, I mean, it was a close fight, but I thought he had done enough to win that fight, but they didn't give it to him, obviously.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. I tell you what, if Lewis is able to pull off this victory, it'll be, in my eyes and probably yours too, a huge upset and probably the biggest victory. I mean, if the victory here, I don't see it happening, and it's over a former champion. This erases his loss against Mark Hunt, puts him right back into that like top 5 kind of like title shot guy. So this would be a huge victory for Derrick Lewis. He's just gonna have to pull something out of his butt, though, I think, on this one.
Nice. And when it comes to Demetrious, it's funny because Ray Borg obviously is very tough and wouldn't be in the position to earn a title fight without being that kind of a fighter and having that much success. But I almost feel, I'm like, nobody can beat DJ. I mean, and obviously somebody can. Obviously he has lost in the past, but he just seems too connected to the zone, to everything. Like I just don't know what Ray would do that he can do better than Demetrious and Capital. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and he'd have to do something, and he'd have to do something perfectly, because even if he got positioning on Demetrious, like, who's finishing Demetrious? You might land a punch or get a takedown on him, but he always seems to get back up or eat the punch or weather the storm, and then he always has that championship mentality now where he gets better on the 4th and 5th round if it goes that far, where there's nobody else in his division, maybe even in the UFC, who you could say does it better than him, because he fights 5-round fights his entire career now because he's been champion so long. And if he doesn't finish you, he's winning every round in the 4th and 5th. So who has accumulated more championship rounds than Demetrious Johnson in his division? Nobody. So he's got that huge experience factor. Plus, he's probably the best pound-for-pound guy we have ever seen. Ray Borg, another guy that might have to pull something out of his ass. But if history tells itself, this might be the fight to bet on, Karyn, because every time we think this is like a sure win, this is where you got to put down a G. Go to your sock drawer, or whatever. Maybe it's a Louis Vuitton box. Not a Louis Vuitton. Yeah. What's the red bottom
Cartier?
Shoes? Yeah. Get your cash
the red
out
bottom
there.
shoes. Louboutins. Christian Louboutins.
Louis Vuitton. Yeah, I knew you. Yeah. And then we're gonna put down $1,000. It'll be in favor of MMA Heat. You put down the money, but it'll be.
I see how that works.
And then we're gonna go for Ray Borg, and if he gets the upset, we're gonna split the $3,000 or whatever the win is.
Oh my God! You're a man with a plan. I know this. You're a man with a plan. It is gonna be interesting. And I asked Demetrious too. He said he didn't mind that they weren't the main event. He said, hey, it's fine because. I was supposed to be before, and then it got canceled. The fight got pushed. He's like, I'm just glad they were able to relocate us so quickly. I'm not stressed out about not being, the main event, because I know some people thought that was disrespectful, even though, sometimes they would go by the weight classes, but with DJ going for this potentially legendary record-setting thing, that maybe he should have been the main event, but he's chill about it. Like, I feel like really not much bothers Demetrious. Either not much bothers Demetrious, or he's just really good at not showing what bothers him, because he really seems to take everything just with it is what, it's cool, it's fine, it's this, it's that. I really applaud him being able to just sort of let stuff wash over him.
It is what it is, but I mean, I think they made the right decision, because the lighter weight classes don't get as much respect as the bigger weight classes, obviously, and it's just life. It's just how it is. You see a 125 man on the cover of the poster, or you see a 155-pound man. The bigger man is more scary, more intimidating, sells. And I think that not only is the the Lee Ferguson fight more intriguing. They got more beef, more in a
yeah.
But it's also like two more kind of like scarier, dangerous more men rather than DJ. So I'm glad that he didn't raise a shitstorm. But I did hear. I'm curious. Is this true? If you know this, I saw Kevin Lee saying in an interview that Demetrious is getting pay-per-view points for the first time in this fight he hadn't before. Do you know if that's true?
See, I'm not sure about that, and I hesitate to speak about Demetrious and the pay-per-view points because there's been different things said over the years as to, like, if he's a fighter who never gets any period, or if gets him only after this, or he took a deal on this fight that he would just take cash and not the pay-per-view points. I actually don't know where that stands. And I think there's a lot of misinformation about that. Maybe he will be asked about that this week. But I thought I was under the impression that he was somebody who actually doesn't get points. But I don't know if that's true.
That's what I thought as well. But I also know that, like, in order to start getting the pay-per-view points, you have to sell a certain amount. And then after a certain amount of buys, then the money starts coming in. So maybe he was on pay-per-view points, but some of the fights that he headlined did not have enough buys to attribute any money, and so maybe that's what they meant by it.
Right. Well, also he has fought on Fox a lot too, so they've put DJ on Fox and FS1 and stuff. Which personally, I don't know. You're the fighter, but I don't hate that. I mean, if you're a guy who doesn't get points anyway, I don't know if DJ. Just in general, and you have the opportunity to fight on quote unquote free TV. And open your audience that way. I don't see how that's necessarily always a bad thing. I understand that you guys want the cachet of saying I'm a pay-per-view fighter, but at the same time, we know that if you're the featured prelim sometimes on FS1, that's a good thing. Or if you're on a Fox card or whatever, because people watch it at home. It's still free. The bars are still showing the free ones. I don't think that's necessarily the end of the world.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that in the wake of the tragedy, people still go out and attend the fights and. True. We'll still watch it and everything and buy it, and hopefully DJ at the end of the day makes some money as well. So it's wild. So you, my friend, are training. You're getting your hustle on. Working nonstop. I've got an interesting lineup of sparring partners this week, Karyn.
Yeah.
As you saw on Countdown, I was doing some work with Tony Ferguson for the Lee fight. Wednesday, I'm going to see a good friend of yours, Sir Michael Bisping. The Count. And then possibly Thursday, I'm going to see another friend of everyone, Anderson Silva.
Oh, so, that guy.
That guy. You may have heard.
I mean, it's a real shame you can't find anybody decent to train with.
I know. I don't think we're all going to be having lunch together afterward. But it'll be good. It'll be good training for me and for them, hopefully. Yeah,
and they requested you to come. I mean, because I remember when we were working together, Mike was asking you what you're doing and are you around, because he needs bodies. He needs bodies, right? So.
And that's how it came about. He's just getting ready for St. Pierre. Obviously, he's brought in a lot of wrestlers.
Yeah.
And so he's breaking up his rounds, his sparring rounds, something like he goes 2.5 minutes with a wrestler, then 2.5 minutes with a striker. And he just wanted to bring in some new guys. Obviously, I'm Southpaw. George St. Pierre is Orthodox. I'll just switch it up. But at the end of the day, he knows how to fight an Orthodox guy or a Southpaw. It's more about just having those reflexes fast. And somebody like me go in there who moves like a UFC fighter, that's going to do anything completely different or completely weird. I'm going to do a lot of the stuff that a high-level guy would do if I'm Southpaw or if I'm Orthodox. So it'll give him good reaction time in preparation.
Well, for sure. And in terms of Kelvin, Kelvin is a fast 85er. So if you can go in there and be even faster, as to give Anderson those looks, I'm sure that would be very helpful for him.
Same thing with Anderson. Although Kelvin is a Southpaw, so I do help out a lot in that category. But I just want to make sure I'm not Anderson Silva's punching bag because he's like 6'2". He's got extremely long arms. And he's a big 85er off season, whatever. I need to make sure we're doing more than just boxing, because at boxing he's gonna box me up. I got to get in there and kick him or take him.
Yeah, be careful, because when he does that thing when the hands go down and this starts happening, that's when you gotta run away, my friend.
Yeah. Don't take your eye off of him when he's doing that.
Don't. Oh, my God. It is incredible to think, Demetrious could pass Anderson there with his record with that 11th defense. And, I mean, that's just so cool for both those guys. I mean, that really is incredible what they've been able to pull off. It's funny because I'm sitting there today talking to Demetrious, and we're talking about all this stuff, and I guess, you don't sort of necessarily always appreciate, like, history or whatever while you're in the moment. Do you know what I mean? But as we walked away, I kind of thought about it. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, we're just talking to a guy, he's chill, he's talking about gaming, with his friends, but he's literally, like the best guy at what he does, and he's about to go, potentially set this record. Every now and then I do sort of just think, I really want to applaud what you ladies and gentlemen are doing out there for our entertainment, because it really is incredible. And like, when you're watching, when we were at Maymac and stuff like that, like you can tell, okay, this is something that people are going to remember, and you did feel part of this bigness, this whole thing. But quietly, you got guys like DJ and stuff just putting in hard work and just doing amazing things. It's really quite impressive.
It's historic, and it could be something very historic, that a record that may last for a very long time. What if it's never broken?
What if he keeps going too?
Yeah, I think about this stuff all the time. I used to have a poster on my wall when Ali knocked out. I forgot the guy that knocked out in like the first round, and he stayed above him like that, know. And I have an Ali book in my bathroom as well. And in that picture, I've seen the picture 1,000 times, but I'm always looking at the photographers that are on the ring right there taking pictures, and I'm thinking, how cool would it have been to be at that event, or to be the photographer who took that picture? And now it's such a historical type picture in fighting. It's like everybody knows that picture, and like this, the same thing. If DJ is able to break that record, so what? He's not the headliner. Ray Borg's not a huge name, but what if that record's not broken for another 20 years, and everybody looks back at this fight and they're like, holy shit, that's amazing, the feat that he accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the whole thing. Is I asked him in the Q&A about going up in weight and stuff like that, and he's like, maybe not, but like he still can make this weight. He has no problem. There's no reason to say he could stop at 11 and be like, whatever, walk away. Like, dude could legit get 15 defenses or something like that.
Yeah, I think eventually, if the money doesn't change him, then the pressure from the UFC will. Yeah. If he's able to get through Ray Borg, I think either way the UFC will pressure him. But the outcome of this fight, if he walks through Ray Borg, if he puts Ray Borg away by the second round, they are obviously going to interview him and say, what is next for you? Are you ready for the super fights? You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's a closely contested fight and it goes 5 rounds, they're still going to ask him, what's next for you now that you broke it? But if he's able to put Ray Borg away, I think it's going to be almost pressure. Like, we want to see you step up. We want to see you fight in some super fights now. I think the pressure and the money might get to him.
It could. And he definitely does talk about what he thinks about Cejudo and Pettis and that kind of thing. So in that Q&A, if people are curious, this one is together, Kevin and DJ, and we go back and forth. But he does have a lot to say about, the division and that kind of thing. And as well, the Fabricio one, as we know, because of the argument, those two guys were separated and their Q&As are separate. But Fabricio talks a lot about whether, he can get a title shot again, or, is it going to be the winner of Ngannou and Overeem? And he's, basically sort of saying, well, it kind of depends on how the people win, and and that kind of thing. He's like, if I win decisively and this one doesn't, maybe I can get the next shot, or the winners of these 2 upcoming fights fight each other to be the next one to get at Stipe. So these are very important fights, a very important fight for Fabricio to not lose, a very important fight, like you said, for Derrick Lewis to sort of, his 2-week, 6-week retirement or whatever. But still, it is that'd be the biggest feather on his cap, like you said, a former champ. So I think there are definitely some good storylines at 216. This should be a fun card. I know it is going to be a weird thing in Vegas. Hopefully everybody's okay and can have this a good night there. But I wonder how much it is going to weigh on people. But I think it's going to be a fun card. But
yeah, I mean, you said it. It's got to be. You would think that it's got to be part of the storyline of fight. As this stuff's going on, they're all human. They're fighters, but they're human, and they're dealing with it in the wake of it in the city that it happened. And like you said, a lot of UFC people that worked at the UFC were actually at the festival when it happened. So it's going to be kind of a mutual thing, and it'll be curious to see how it plays out during fight week. How much it affects stuff. I think a lot of interviews are gonna involve a lot of people sharing their remorse or whatnot, and then obviously at the end of fights, when people get a hold of the microphone, we'll probably see a lot of them as well. So it'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely. Well, I will be in the studio with welterweight champ Tyron Woodley, Kenny Florian, and Paul Felder is coming in to make his debut. Now, some guy that was there recently for his first time set the bar pretty damn high. So Felder now has to live up to you and your awesome debut. I know he's been doing the Tuesday Night Contender Series stuff. I think he's been doing a good job on that, and he called a couple of the fights a few weeks ago, you know, on another broadcast. But yeah, I'm excited. I really, you know, I've interviewed the guy a couple of times. I really don't know him well, so I'm excited to work with somebody new. But you know, you laid it down. You put the blueprint out for how to crush it on your first time.
I'm not saying I want Paul Felder to slip on a banana peel, but I want him to slip on.
Yeah, right.
Joking. I've said it before. Like, he's great. I watch him on. The little that I watch on the Contender Series, Paul Felder does a tremendous job. I thought when he got the call up to do the big show, to commentate the main card, I thought it was well deserved. He's well spoken. He's gonna kill it. Yeah. At the desk. I don't know if he's going to live up to what I laid down.
I mean...
But he's going to do a solid job nonetheless.
Yeah, he will. He will. I guess he studied acting, actually. Like, you know, that was... So he has a theater background and a performance background, so he knows a little something about the game, so...
Ooh, I know. I heard the same thing. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. For sure. Well, yeah, you were great. In terms of what else I have going on this week, we have Tough Talk and UFC Tonight coming back this week, so that should be good. And I actually did do a Trocasao already with Evie. So those of you who speak Portuguese, we talk about the Werdum Tony thing, and then also I was able to get some questions from Werdum in Portuguese too. So if people check out the latest Trocasao number 21. They will see that, and it's interesting to get her perspective on what happened in Brazil, because a lot of the people in Brazil didn't think of it as big of a deal as other parts of the world did. So it's interesting to hear her take on things. So,
and if you haven't seen the incident we're talking about, guys, please go watch it. I want you to look out. My favorite part is when it got heated, and then Tony stood up. And you saw the size difference. Yeah. And Werdum is just massive. He's like Harry Henderson's. He's just this ass guy. He made Tony look a lot smaller. Yeah. And Tony goes, "You're about to get ankle picked, man," or something like that.
Yeah, watch out for ankle pick you. I gotta say,
pick him.
Totally. Well, Tony had some classic, I gotta say, because like I said, Werdum, I love him. Werdum is great, but Tony had a couple of lines where I was like, "Oh shoot, that was good." Where he said, "Have fun fighting on my undercard," or something. I was like, that hurt, you know.
Been practicing, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, so it is. I did instigate it by asking Fabricio if he was done eating and he was ready to go. I didn't expect him to answer me in full voice and say that he was. So again, I've apologized a lot. I really feel bad. Really, I was obviously not trying to interrupt Tony. I was just trying to see, okay, are you ready? You guys are both sitting down. That's how those Q&As work. If you both are there, you're both available. And I was just waiting for Fabricio to finish eating before we went in on him. But lesson learned.
No.
But hey, it gave us something to talk about, didn't it?
Hey, it made the presser a lot more exciting than it probably would have been. So.
Yeah. Oh, and on your standing up part too, just so you know too, and people will see this if they look at the 360, because if you just saw the argument cut, you might not have missed it. Actually, Chris Costello from PR kind of comes over and he wants Fabricio to let's just go over here. So I think people might have thought that Fabricio was standing up to grandstand and start more of a fight, when really he was getting up to walk away, you know. Yeah. So, but whatever, it is interesting to watch the 360 and just to see too, because you can turn, if people don't know, on those screens on those videos, you can turn it and see everything. So you can see Wade standing there filming things. You can see me sitting there looking down at my camera going, "Oh no!" I just started to look around nothing to see here, people. I totally didn't just cause this. Nothing to see here.
I just.
Sorry. You see me just trying to, when a baseball player, let's say the second baseman, misses something, and they get to run all the way to third, and he starts looking at his glove or kind of digging a hole in the ground to try to bury himself in it. Yeah, that was me.
I'm gonna have to go watch 360 one.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, so where can people find you on social media?
Yep, check me out, guys, at Alan Jouban, across the board for everything.
Awesome. So I got Karyn Bryant on Twitter and on YouTube. We have MMA Heat on Facebook, MMAHeat.com, and obviously MMA Heat on YouTube as well. If you go to the MMA Heat channel, that's where Wade has a lot more of those 360 things. He actually films a lot of stuff in 360. So if you people like that, he's got a ton more there on the MMA Heat channel. On YouTube and also and on MMAHeat.com. Trocasao MMA with me and Evie. And all right, awesome, Alan. Well, I hope you have a good week. Keep your hands up with those guys. You're about to go in there with some champs. I need you to keep your hands up.
I'm gonna do my best. All right,
I'll see you later.
All right, see you later, guys.